9 experienced hikers, a mountain they had climbed before, a night that ended with 0 survivors, and 66 years later, no explanation that everyone accepts. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, and it is not a ghost story. It is not folklore. It is a real, documented, officially investigated event that has defeated every scientist, prosecutor, and researcher who has tried to close it. The Soviet government called it a compelling natural force. They sealed the files for 30 years. That phrase, compelling natural force, might be the most chilling non-answer in the history of criminal investigation. My name is Quantumatrixx. Tonight, we follow the evidence, all of it, and at the end, you decide what you believe. Let's begin. January 23rd, 1959. A group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on a skiing expedition across the northern Urals in Soviet Russia. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, an engineering student, an experienced mountaineer. The route was rated Grade 3, the highest difficulty level available at the time. Every member of the group had completed expeditions of similar difficulty. These were not amateurs. One member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early due to joint pain. He would become the only survivor, not because of what happened, but because he left before it did. For the rest of his life, Yudin said he wished he knew what killed his friends. The remaining 9 continued toward Otorten Mountain. They set up camp on the slope of Kolet on the night of February 1st. Kolet, in the local Monsey language, this translates to Dead Mountain. They were never seen alive again. When the group failed to check in by February 12th, their families raised the alarm. A search party was dispatched on February 20th. What they found on February 26th would generate debate for the next 6 decades. The tent had been destroyed, not from the outside, from the inside. Someone had used a knife to slash through the canvas and escape into the open, into temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius. At night, without boots, without coats, without equipment. The footprints in the snow told the next part of the story. 9 sets of tracks, leading away from the tent in an orderly line, down the slope toward the tree line. Not running, walking, as if in a controlled evacuation. Then the footprints stopped. The first 5 bodies were found scattered across the slope, within 300 to 500 meters of the tent. Some were wearing only underwear. 1 had a single boot. 2 were completely barefoot in snow that reached -40. Autopsies confirmed they died of hypothermia, but there was something the autopsies could not explain. The remaining 4 bodies were not found until May, when the snow melted enough to reveal a ravine 70 meters from a cedar tree. These 4 were better dressed than the others. They had taken clothing from their dead companions. They had survived longer. But their injuries were catastrophic. Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles had a fractured skull. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs, not cracked, shattered, with a force that investigators compared to a car crash. Zolotaryov was also missing both eyes. Dubinina was missing her tongue, and there was no external trauma, no wounds on the skin. Whatever force broke their bones from the inside left no marks on the outside. One investigator described it as being hit by a car, but from the inside. This is where every simple explanation breaks down. Here is what we actually know. The facts that every theory must account for. The tent was cut from the inside, meaning the group chose to leave, not that they were forced out by an intruder. The footprints were orderly, not panicked. 6 died of hypothermia in various states of undress, a condition known as paradoxical undressing, where a dying person feels intense heat and removes their clothing. 3 died from traumatic internal injuries with no external wounds. 2 were missing eyes. 1 was missing a tongue, and traces of radioactivity were found on several items of clothing. One more detail. Witnesses at the time reported seeing glowing orange spheres in the sky above the Ural Mountains on the night of February 1st to 2nd. Multiple independent witnesses in different locations. Now, the theories. Theory 1, avalanche. The Russian government's official 2019 conclusion and the most scientifically supported explanation. Researchers from ETH Zurich use computer modeling to demonstrate that a rare type of event, a slab avalanche, could have struck the tent, caused the internal injuries, and forced the group to flee. Critically, slab avalanches leave almost no trace. By the time rescuers arrived 3 weeks later, all evidence would have been buried or eroded. This explains the injuries. It explains the tent. It explains the flight into the night. But critics point to 4 problems. The slope angle was too shallow for a traditional avalanche. No rescuer found any avalanche debris. The group waited 9 hours after setting up camp before anything happened. An unusual delay if the tent was in danger from the start. And it does not explain the radioactivity or the orange spheres. Theory 2. Soviet military weapons test. In 2025, this theory gained new momentum. Declassified records confirm that the Soviet military was testing psychoacoustic weapons, devices designed to cause panic and disorientation through infrasound, in the northern Urals region during the late 1950s. Infrasound at certain frequencies causes extreme psychological distress, loss of orientation, and in some cases, internal hemorrhaging consistent with the injuries found. The orange spheres in the sky, the radiation on the clothing, the fact that the group walked, not ran, the fact that the Soviet files were sealed for 30 years. Proponents of this theory say these details are not coincidences. Theory 3. The group became inconvenient witnesses. The 2025 military rocket theory goes further. 9 + 1 members. Precisely the structure of a standard Soviet military reconnaissance group. On the night of the incident, witnesses saw orange lights. If those lights were a failed rocket test, and the group photographed or documented what they saw, they may have become witnesses the Soviet state could not allow to survive. The footprints leading downhill in an orderly line. Not panic. Escort. This theory has never been confirmed, but the sealed files, the 30-year silence, and the radioactivity have never been fully explained by the natural cause theories either. Here is what 6 decades of investigation have produced. The slab avalanche is the most scientifically defensible explanation. Most mainstream researchers accept it. The Swiss team that proposed it has conducted multiple expeditions and found video evidence of similar avalanches occurring on the same slope under similar conditions. And yet, the eyes, the tongue, the radiation, the orange spheres, the Soviet silence. These details do not disappear just because an avalanche explains the broken ribs. So I leave you with the same question that has haunted this case since 1959. 9 experienced people cut their way out of a tent in -30 degrees and walked barefoot down a mountain in the dark. 3 of them died with injuries so severe that investigators reached for the language of car accidents. 2 of them were missing their eyes. The Soviet government sealed the files and called it a compelling natural force. What compelled them out of that tent? We may never know, but the mountain still stands. The pass still carries his name, and somewhere in the Russian state archives, there are files that have never been made public. What do you think happened on Dead Mountain? Leave your answer below. I read every comment. And if this case left you with more questions than answers, that's exactly where we want to be. Subscribe, because next week we go deeper.